I stood in the middle of my own bakery on grand opening night, flour still faintly dusting my apron, and watched my brother accept an award for my life's work. He smiled for the cameras, holding up the plaque that was supposed to have my name on it. Hours later, after the last fake smile had faded, my phone pinged. It was an invoice from him for his share of the party planning expenses. I declined the payment and attached a note. "Consider this your 30-day notice." He had no idea I had already called my lawyer. You have to understand, the Gilded Spoon wasn't just a business to me. It was the only thing that had ever felt truly mine. For 5 years, it was my entire world. It was 3 a.m. alarms to feed sourdough starters, burns up and down my arms from the deep ovens, and negotiating with suppliers until my voice was hoarse. It was crying in the walk-in freezer after a massive order fell through, and dancing alone in the kitchen at midnight when I finally perfected my salted caramel croissant recipe. I had poured every dollar of my savings, every ounce of my energy, and every beat of my heart into the exposed brick and reclaimed wood of that little corner shop. It was me, in the form of butter and sugar. My brother, Leo, saw it as an accessory. A cool story to tell at bars. He'd helped in the way a toddler helps you cook by throwing flour on the floor. He designed the logo, after I'd already sketched out the entire concept. He schmoozed with a potential investor once, charming him with stories of our vision. A vision he'd only heard about from me the night before. My parents, of course, saw him as the co-founder, the business mind. I was the talent, the baker. But Leo was the brand. In their eyes, I was just the quiet, reliable engine, but he was the shiny hood ornament. The week of the grand opening was a blur of controlled chaos. I was pulling 18-hour days, managing a new staff, finalizing menus, and personally triple-checking every last detail. Leo showed up for a few hours each afternoon, usually with a coffee in hand, to supervise. He'd walk around, nod approvingly at the pastry cases I'd spent all morning filling, and then pull me aside to suggest we add more of a vibe to the place. One day, he brought in a ridiculously expensive sound system he'd bought on the company credit card I'd stupidly given him access to. "Ambiance is everything, Chloe," he'd said, clapping me on the shoulder while I was trying to stop a batch of macarons from cracking. My parents were there too, beaming. "Oh, Leo, you think of everything," my mom would say. "Chloe is so lucky to have you handling the business side." I'd just smile, a tight, brittle thing, and go back to kneading dough, the frustration a knot in my stomach, as tight as the bread I was forming. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Just get through the opening. Once the business is stable, I'll have a real conversation. I'll set boundaries. I'll make them see. I was so naive. I thought a conversation could fix a foundation that was rotten from the start. The grand opening night was supposed to be the culmination of it all. The validation. The moment where everyone saw the years of sacrifice pay off. The local paper was there. A few food bloggers, all our friends and family. The air buzzed with excitement, and the warm, intoxicating smell of fresh bread and coffee. I was exhausted but electric, moving through the crowd, accepting congratulations, my chef's coat feeling like a suit of armor. I felt for the first time like a real business owner. A success. Around 8 p.m., my dad tapped a glass for a toast. He and my mom stood at the front, beaming. I moved closer, expecting him to call me up, to say a few words about my journey. Instead, he said, "And now, we have a very special surprise. The Downtown Business Guild would like to present its annual New Innovator Award to the visionary behind the Gilded Spoon." My heart swelled. This was it. This was the moment. My dad continued, his voice booming with pride. "Please join me in congratulating my son, Leo." The world went silent. I watched, as if in slow motion, as Leo strode to the front. He took the polished wooden plaque from the guild representative. He held it up for the flashing cameras. My mom was crying, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. I saw my best friend, Maya, look at me from across the room, her face a mask of confusion and horror. Leo launched into a speech he'd clearly prepared. He talked about his dream, about the risks he took, about the sleepless nights he spent building this brand. He thanked me, his talented sister, for handling the kitchen operations so he could focus on the big picture. I didn't hear the applause. I just felt a cold, hollow space open up inside me. It wasn't just that he took the credit. It was that my parents had orchestrated it. They had gone behind my back and arranged for the award. In his name. They had erased me from my own story, in front of everyone I knew. I looked at my dad, who caught my eye for a split second before looking away, a flicker of guilt quickly stamped out by pride. My mother didn't look at me at all. They hadn't just allowed this to happen. They had gift-wrapped my dream and handed it to him. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute. It felt like it sucked all the air out of the room. I felt humiliated, erased. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break. It hardened into steel. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. That was the old Chloe. The Chloe who would have swallowed the pain to keep the peace. Instead, a strange, terrifying calm washed over me. I turned to the nearest person, a blogger I'd been chatting with earlier, and smiled. "Excuse me for a moment," I said, my voice even. I walked back toward the kitchen, untying my apron as I went. My staff looked at me with pity and concern. I gave my head baker, a kind woman named Rosa, a small, reassuring nod. "Keep everything running," I said quietly. "I'll be back tomorrow." I slipped out the back door, into the cool night air of the alley. I didn't go home. I walked 3 blocks to a quiet 24-hour diner, slid into a booth, and ordered a black coffee. The shock was starting to wear off, replaced by a white-hot, focused rage. It wasn't the explosive kind. It was cold and clear, like a sheet of ice. I pulled out my phone and looked at the picture a friend had tagged me in. Leo, holding my award, my parents on either side of him, all of them beaming. Underneath, a caption from my mom. "So proud of our son, the entrepreneur." That was when I made the first call. To my lawyer, leaving a clipped, urgent voicemail. "Mark, it's Chloe. We need to talk first thing in the morning. It's about the bakery's corporate structure. It's an emergency." Then I opened the banking app. The business account I'd set up was a joint account. A mistake. A massive, idiotic mistake made in the name of family unity. I saw the charge from the stereo store. I saw a dozen other charges from the last month. Fancy dinners, clothes, bar tabs. He'd been using it like his personal piggy bank. With 3 taps, I transferred every remaining cent into my personal savings account, an account he couldn't touch. It was a substantial amount, enough to cover payroll and expenses for at least 2 months. The business account now had a balance of $17.32. The final step was the most important. I had registered the business as a partnership, another bit of naive trust. But the name, The Gilded Spoon, I had trademarked that myself 2 years prior, under my own name, on the advice of a mentor. It was the one piece of this whole venture that was legally, unequivocally mine. I logged into the state's business registry. I paid the fee to dissolve the partnership. Then I filed for a new LLC. Gilded Spoon Holdings, LLC. Sole proprietor, Chloe Miller. I sat there in that diner until the sun came up, methodically cutting him out. Changing passwords to our social media accounts. Removing his name from our supplier contracts. Drafting an email to the staff explaining a restructuring. By the time my phone pinged with that invoice from him for the party, $2,500 for event planning and PR services, I didn't even feel angry anymore. I felt nothing. I declined the request and sent my reply. Consider this your 30-day notice. He would interpret it as a threat, an emotional outburst. He wouldn't understand it was a statement of fact. His access, his influence, his free ride, it was all terminated. Effective immediately. This wasn't the first time, you see. It was just the most public. The audacity of it all was shocking, but the pattern was as old as we were. When I was 10, I spent a month building a model of the solar system for the school science fair. It was intricate, with tiny hand-painted planets that actually rotated with a complex gear system I'd designed. The night before it was due, Leo, who was 12 and had forgotten about his own project, accidentally knocked it off the table, shattering it. He cried, saying how clumsy he was. My parents rushed to comfort him. Then my dad looked at me, my face streaked with tears over my broken project, and said, "Chloe, don't be selfish. Your brother feels terrible. You can build another one." I stayed up all night making a pathetic static diorama out of styrofoam balls. Leo, meanwhile, took the gears from my broken model, glued them to a board, called it a study of mechanical engineering, and won a blue ribbon. My parents framed the certificate. In high school, it was the same story, just with higher stakes. I was a finalist for a prestigious summer program in culinary arts in France. The application required a personal essay. I spent weeks on it, pouring my heart out about my grandmother teaching me to bake. I let Leo read it for typos. The next day, he proudly announced at dinner that he'd decided to apply for a young entrepreneurs program and had used my essay as inspiration for his own. He'd changed a few words. Baking became building. Grandmother became grandfather, and submitted it. He got in. I didn't. When I confronted him, he just shrugged. All's fair in love and war, sis. It was a better fit for me, anyway. My parents told me to be proud of him, that his success was the family's success. They told me I could always apply again next year. They never saw it as theft. They saw it as Leo being resourceful, being a go-getter. They saw my anger as jealousy. They saw my hurt as an overreaction. Over the years, I learned to hide my accomplishments, to downplay my successes so they wouldn't become his. I built the Gilded Spoon in the shadows, hoping that if it was big enough, tangible enough, They wouldn't be able to ignore that it was mine. I was wrong. They didn't ignore it. They just handed it to him on a silver platter. That night in the diner, replaying that history in my mind, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a fool for letting it happen for so long. The calm that had settled over me wasn't peace. It was resolve. This wasn't just about a bakery anymore. This was about taking my life back. The first confrontation happened less than 24 hours later. I was at the bakery early, a locksmith finishing up installing new, high-security locks on the front and back doors. Rosa and the rest of the morning staff were inside, confused, but loyal. I'd given them a brief, sanitized version of events, a partnership dissolution, and a raise. It was enough for now. At exactly 9:05 a.m., Leo's sleek convertible squealed to a stop out front. He strode to the door, sunglasses on, a smug look on his face. He tried his key. It didn't work. He jiggled it, then frowned. He tried it again. Nothing. He banged on the glass, his expression shifting from annoyance to confusion. I walked to the door and unlocked it, opening it just a few inches. "What the hell, Chloe? The lock is broken," he said, trying to push past me. I held my ground. "It's not broken, Leo. It's new." The smugness evaporated. "What are you talking about? Why would you change the locks? Let me in. I have to get the bank deposit slip." "There's nothing to deposit," I said, my voice flat. "And you don't work here anymore." He actually laughed, a short, incredulous bark. "What are you on? Did you not get enough sleep? We had an amazing opening night. The award, the press. We killed it." "No, you had an amazing opening night," I corrected him. "You accepted an award for my work. You gave a speech about your dream. And then you had the nerve to send me a bill." His face darkened. The charming facade was gone, revealing the petulant entitlement underneath. "Oh, I see. This is because of the award. Chloe, grow up. It's good for the brand. It's PR. You're the baker, I'm the face. That's the deal. We talked about this." "We never talked about that, Leo. That is a story you and Mom and Dad invented to make you feel important. The only deal was a partnership agreement, which I dissolved this morning. Along with your access to the company bank account, your company credit card, and your position in this company. You're out." He stared at me, his mouth slightly open. He looked from me to the new lock, to the staff, watching us through the window. The reality was slowly dawning on him, and he didn't like it. "You can't do that." "I can, and I did. The trademark is in my name. The new LLC is in my name. This building," I patted the doorframe, "is leased in my name. You have nothing. Now, if you don't leave, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "You wouldn't dare," he hissed, his voice low and venomous. "Try me," I said. And for the first time, he saw that I meant it. He saw the cold, hard resolve in my eyes, and knew the game was over. He backed away, his face contorted with a rage that was terrifying to see. "You'll regret this! Mom and Dad will tear you apart," he screamed, jabbing a finger at me. "You're destroying this family." "The family?" I laughed, a real bitter laugh this time. "You're the one who stood on a stage and erased me from my own life. You think I care about a family that does that? Go home, Leo. Go tell Mommy and Daddy that your allowance has been cut off." I shut the door in his face and locked it. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline. It was the electrifying feeling of a cage door swinging open. I leaned against the door for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then I turned back to my kitchen, to my staff, to my bakery. My real bakery. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. An hour later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then, my dad. Voicemail. Then Mom again. I finally answered, putting it on speaker so Maya, who had rushed over with a bag of bagels and a bottle of tequila, could bear witness. "Chloe, what is the meaning of this?" My mother's voice was shrill with panic. "Leo just came home. He said you've locked him out of his own business. You drained the bank account. What is wrong with you?" "There's nothing wrong with me, Mom. I'm just finally protecting what's mine." "What's yours?" she scoffed. "This was a family project. Leo has worked just as hard as you have." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "He worked hard? Mom, are you listening to yourself? I have been here every single day for 5 years. He showed up for photo ops. Do not tell me he worked hard. He handled the vision, the marketing," she insisted, her voice getting louder. "You're being so selfish and ungrateful. After everything we did to make that opening a success for you. That award was supposed to be a wonderful moment for the whole family." "It was a wonderful moment for Leo," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You put his name on my award. You stood there and smiled while he took credit for every bit of my blood, sweat, and tears. That's not a family, Mom. That's a cult with Leo as the leader." There was a sputtering on the other end of the line. "You are unhinged. You have always been jealous of your brother's natural charisma. You're trying to punish him for being likable." That was it. That was the line. "No, Mom, I'm not punishing him. I'm firing him. There's a difference. He can be as charismatic as he wants somewhere else, on his own dime. The Gilded Spoon is no longer funding his lifestyle. This conversation is over." I hung up before she could reply and blocked her number. Then, my dad's. It felt like severing a limb, painful and brutal, but necessary for survival. Maya just looked at me, her eyes wide. "Wow," she breathed. "You actually did it." "I had to," I said, a strange sense of lightness filling my chest. They weren't going to stop until they had taken everything. The following weeks were a strange mix of turmoil and peace. Legally, Leo had no ground to stand on. My lawyer, Mark, was ruthless and efficient. He sent Leo and my parents a cease and desist letter that detailed every expense he'd charged to the company, every lie he'd told investors, and the undeniable legal fact of my sole ownership. The threat of pressing fraud charges was enough to silence them, at least directly, but the smear campaign was vicious. Suddenly, mutual friends were texting me, asking if I was okay, telling me they'd heard a different side of the story. The story was that I was mentally unstable, that I'd had a breakdown, and was trying to sabotage the family business out of spite. That Leo, the poor victim, was just trying to protect his investment and his unstable sister. Some people believed it. I lost a few friends who couldn't handle the drama. It hurt, but it was also clarifying. It showed me who was really in my corner. My business, however, began to thrive. Freed from the dead weight of Leo's vision and expenses, I was able to run things my way. I focused on quality. I built relationships with my customers. The story of the grand opening had leaked, as stories do, and the local community rallied around me. People came in specifically to support the real owner. The food bloggers who had been there that night wrote glowing reviews, subtly hinting at the drama and praising my resilience and talent. We were busier than ever. One afternoon, about a month after the explosion, I was frosting a cake when I saw my father's car pull up across the street. He didn't get out. He just sat there for a long time, watching the line of customers snaking out my door, watching me through the window, moving with a purpose and confidence he'd never seen in me before. I didn't wave. I didn't acknowledge him. I just kept working. After about 20 minutes, he drove away. It was the closest thing to a concession I ever got from him. The peace I found wasn't quiet. It was loud with the clang of baking sheets, the whir of mixers, and the chatter of happy customers. It was the peace of purpose, the peace of knowing that every single success was mine, earned and owned. I was no longer a supporting character in the Leo show. I was the protagonist of my own damn story, and it was turning out to be a bestseller. I've learned that when you draw a hard line with a toxic family, the silence they punish you with is often the greatest gift they could ever give you. It's been 6 months. There have been no more phone calls, no more angry voicemails. My parents communicate only through my lawyer now, mostly about untangling some old family assets I'd co-signed on years ago. Foolishly. I approved every request without comment. I wanted to be free of them, and that meant cutting every last tie, no matter the cost. Leo, from what I've heard through Maya, is not doing well. The charm that worked so well when it was backed by my money and my success doesn't work on its own. The investors he'd schmoozed wanted to see a business plan, profit margins, a product. He had none of those things. His convertible was repossessed last month. He's apparently living back at home. And my parents are footing his bills, their narrative shifting from Leo the entrepreneur to Leo the poor misunderstood victim. I feel nothing about it. Not pity. Not satisfaction. It's like reading a story about a character I used to know. The most profound lesson in all of this wasn't about business or money. It was about worth. For my entire life, my worth was determined by how well I could accommodate others, particularly my brother. How small I could make myself so he could feel big. How much of my own light I could dim so he could shine brighter. The assumption was that my role was to support, to enable, to be the foundation that he could build his castle on. Breaking away taught me that my worth is not negotiable. It's not contingent on anyone else's approval. The act of choosing myself, my dream, my sanity, over their comfort was the most terrifying and liberating thing I've ever done. It wasn't about revenge. I have no interest in ruining Leo's life. He seems to be doing a fine job of that himself. It was about reclamation. I was reclaiming my work, my name, and my future. There's a cost, of course. I don't have a family in the traditional sense anymore. Holidays are quiet. There are no obligatory Sunday dinners. There's a space where my parents and brother used to be. But what I've realized is that space isn't empty. It's filled with peace. It's filled with friends who see and celebrate the real me. It's filled with the pride of building something real and honest. I traded a toxic, conditional love for a quiet, unwavering self-respect. And it's the best damn bargain I've ever made. The Gilded Spoon isn't just a bakery. It's my declaration of independence. And it tastes like freedom. So, to anyone out there who feels like they're being erased in their own story, who is told their role is to be a stepping stone for someone else, your work matters. Your dreams are valid. And you are allowed to be the hero of your own life. You don't need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to just let them be cold. Trust me, it's not your job to save them from the consequences of their own actions. Your only job is to save yourself. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever had to fight to claim your own success or set a difficult boundary, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. It's important we share these stories to remind each other that we're not alone in these fights. Thank you for listening. It means more than you know.